Well, hello, my fellow friends, my fellow neighbors, and my fellow shining stars. Our next trolley stop is here, and our next trolley stop is now. Welcome back, everyone, to an all-new episode of the Empowered Publicity Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. This is a very special trolley stop because it is episode number 2 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. My name is John Masiulionis, the manager here at Empowered Publicity. We are very excited to spend some time with you here today. Things are continuing to become more open. There's more hope and joy and optimism that we're all feeling right now. And isn't that such a good feeling? It is such a good feeling, by the way. Of course, we want to thank all of you for your support of Empowered Publicity and the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. For those who joined us last month for our premiere episode, thank you for all of your support. And if you are new to the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, well, you can see, first things first, that I don't travel alone for the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. Joining us each and every month to be able to deliver heartfelt reviews of children's books from our favorite neighbors around the world. You remember him as one of the beloved cast members of the long-running hit PBS television show, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. You know him as Mr. McFeely. He is David Newell, as he likes to be referred to himself as Private Citizen Newell in the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast venture. We're going to be sharing 3 brand new heartfelt children's books from several of Empowered Publicity's featured children's authors. And we're going to be sharing those momentarily. And we're just looking forward to spending some time with all of you. So if the message of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast is inspiring you, if it's bringing love and joy into your heart or the heart of your little one, if you simply want to be able to help us promote the message of children's literacy, the importance of children's books, we encourage you to subscribe to Empowered Publicity's official YouTube channel if you already haven't had the chance to do so, and share this very special trolley stop, episode number 2 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, on your favorite social media platforms of choice. David, it's episode number 2. I'm excited. I'm ready to go. How are things with you in Pittsburgh? The trolley goes from San Diego over to Pittsburgh.
I'm fine, thank you. We're going to start with a book called The Little Piano, which I have a copy of here, The Little Piano. And it is written by Trinity Bursey. And I think I'll give you an overview of the book. It's not a long book. And before that, when I was growing up, I liked books that sort of personified, well, the piano's being personified in this, The Little Piano. But I liked a book called Mike the Tough Little Tugboat. And this reminds me of Mike in a way. He has his own life, and he's a person. And I always enjoyed it. And again, last week, I was interested as a kid in Uncle Wiggily, and no one has seemed to remember Uncle Wiggily stories. But it was a rabbit that was a very kind old gentleman rabbit, they described it. I always loved it. So Trinity's book, The Little Piano, there's a little town that has a music shop, and all the instruments in the music shop are waiting for the day that they are going to be helping play music out in the world somewhere. And the little piano, her name is Lyric. And Lyric is waiting for the day that someone will come into the store and take her on a trip around the world where she can be playing music. Well, there is the old fiddle in the store whose name is, let me see. He's the old fiddle. And he's a little bit cynical. He said, it's a cruel world out there, sort of. And people are fickle, and that may never happen, Lyric. I mean, I'm paraphrasing here. These are not Trinity's words, they're mine. I'm just describing. At any rate, they were all in the music shop, and one day a woman comes into the music shop, and she seems like she's a singer and a performer. And she said, "You'll do for my show," basically. That's what she says. And she takes Lyric on a trip around the world to all these wonderful cities and singing music and so forth. But the wear and tear on the piano finally hit, and the singer discards Lyric, the piano, and she ends up playing on the street for pennies and very, very down and very sad and depressed. Well, not only that, but the next, and here's sort of the villain comes into the picture. His name is Walter T. Slime. And he's, as you can tell by the name, not a very nice person. And he takes advantage of Lyric, and he doesn't take care of the piano, doesn't tune the piano, and when he's finished, that's it. And Lyric ends up in a dump truck, very depressed and down on her luck and so forth. Well, jumping back to what the old fiddle said, he said, the master musician is who you should wait for to play the piano, to play the music. And let me see. Oh, yes. And all of a sudden, in the midst of the dump truck, comes along the master musician, and he had kind eyes and a face of love. I'm reading my notes here. And the master musician loved Lyric regardless of all the rust and debris. He liked Lyric for what she was as herself, not what she could do, play music, but for herself. That seems to be well, here's the overall message, and I wrote this down. The master musician told her she believed she was loved because of what she could do. That's what she thought. But he loved the piano because you are you. And that seems to sum up the whole book, that she thought she was loved because of what she could do, play music. But the master musician, and this is the message, I think, for the reader, but he loved the piano because you are you, which I think is quite sweet and a nice message for children. I think this book is for younger children. But he tuned the piano and mended and fixed the strings and made fresh keys and so forth. And Lyric, the piano, was loved after all. Here's how it ends. And it ends by saying, being played by the master musician, was truly the greatest of all. She finally had somebody that she was helped making music, and it took the master musician to show her that she's loved for who she is, because you're you. And I think that's a great message. Oh, it's written in verse, by the way. And it's interesting. Being written in verse is musical. When it's like a poem, and it fits the book. When it's written in verse, it's musical, and it fits the little piano. I think it's better in verse than it would be just in prose as a story. So I like that about it. And well, of course, you can tell that Walter T. Slime is the villain. And but at the beginning, the old fiddle said the world is fickle and can be mean. And it was a hard lesson for Lyric, the piano, to learn. But when it's a good lesson too, because I think this lesson could be discussed as parents or caregivers are reading the book to a child. There's some room to stop and discuss what might be happening. I think that's the best way to read this. It can be helpful depending on the child too.
Correct.
But I think this book is a lesson all the way through for letting that you are you. How important the one person is. You are loved because you're you. I love that. I love that description. And I wrote another note here that the little piano, the book is for younger children. I guess preschool and early elementary, wouldn't you think, in a way?
I agree with that.
And I guess I put down to be best read by a teacher or a parent, and ask questions about the story. Here's another. I think, in a way, the book itself represents all the good that is in the world too, not just all the bad, but it represents the good too, and the positive, and the good in the world is in all of us, really. And it has and it talks about the love that exists in the world. I think, especially now, when children are hearing everything on the news, and this book was refreshing to show that there's possibilities for everybody.
I agree with that, David, and I think it's there's and thank you for just such a beautiful share thus far of the little piano, to be able to add on to what you had shared. For many years, you heard the phrase, "I like you just the way you are."
Oh, yes.
And that was something that Fred Rogers had wanted us to embody in our own way. And there's a lot of people who, want to be the next Barack Obama or the next Mr. Rogers or the next this or the next that. And it's so important to be yourself. And I think that Trinity does such an amazing job with children, reminding each little one of their own inherent worth and their own gifts and skills and talents. And you had talked about, sometimes you can have some challenging experiences in life, and it might be very easy, in the little piano, there were times where Lyric just wanted to give up and say, this might not be worth it. But it's always important to stay the course, to trust, and to really believe that you're worthy of good things, because she had this dream and this desire to be played by the master musician and to be able to be validated and seen and heard and felt and loved. And that came true. But she had to kind of go through those experiences. So I feel one of the things that the book also helps, that the little piano helps kids with, is to treasure those wonderful experiences when they happen, to give yourself time to celebrate. The illustrations, I know we were talking about this in the Publicity Green Room. It's interesting because if you've ever watched Disney's Beauty and the Beast, I kind of even like the coat that the master musician is wearing. It kind of looked very similar to that elegant, regal robe that the Beast was wearing in the dance scene from Beauty and the Beast, that many children and adults remember as well too. But just the illustrations, give a shout out to John D. Schull, the illustrator of the book. The illustrations flowed so beautifully with this story. I just wanted to be able to share those things about the book too.
Oh, I agree. I think it does have more of a cartoon feel to it in the illustrations, which I think too is helpful for younger children too. I think they're very direct and simple illustrations.
Yes.
And it fits the story, and I think it helps the lesson too of the story, the illustration. So the story, they complement each other, I think, the illustrations and the story. Oh, but summing up on the back cover of the book, it says, a little book with a big truth. You are loved because you are you, not for what you can do. And I think that really sums the book up. And it's a good lesson. As you said, she went through some trials there, but I have a 3-year-old granddaughter, but she lives in Canada, and I'd like to read this book to her to see what she thinks. And I think after all of this is over, I think she'll be coming for a visit later on this year. So I'm anxious to see. So that is our first book, The Little Piano, and let's just thank Trinity again for a lovely little book, Trinity Bursey.
One other thing that I did want to mention, David, before we roll on into our second book here on the April edition of the Empowered Publicity Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, to also acknowledge Trinity as well too, because she is an elementary and middle school exceptional children teacher. And she really enjoys helping little ones to reach their highest potential. So I really feel that, we've seen throughout the course of the pandemic how teachers and librarians and principals and how they need to be given and showed more love and attention and respect, because they provide such a valuable service for children, nurturing their minds, their hearts, and their souls. And I feel that Trinity's work as a teacher blends in so well into the book as well too. And I'm excited too, David, because I always like to say, the little birdies that come across here in San Diego, actually Trinity is at work on the second installment in the Little Instrumental series, which, by the way, if you were interested in purchasing your copy for your little one, or if you're an educator and you want to purchase a copy or multiple copies of your books, of Trinity's books for your students, you can either purchase your copy of The Little Piano on Amazon.com, or you can head over to goinstrumental.org or littleinstrumentals.com. And we're including we're including all the links below where you can purchase your copy of not only The Little Piano, but the other two books that we're going to be mentioning momentarily in the process as well too. So David, the trolley has gone from San Diego to Pittsburgh to Sanford, North Carolina, which is where Trinity lives. And now we're shooting all the way out back to the West Coast to around the Los Angeles, California area, where children's author Marla Huehmer resides. And she has put together this beautiful children's book called The Big Move, which helps little ones to be able to move through any sorts of fears and discomforts about moving to a new location or even just starting something new. David, feel free to help us go inside the pages of Marla's debut children's book, The Big Move.
Oh, I will. And before I do that, just reminding that the trolley can also stop at a library too and get the books, because not everyone can afford books and some school systems can't afford it, but libraries are always there. I hope they'll always be with us. At any rate, the Big Move, over the years on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, he did a lot of segments about moving, which he felt was very important. And Marla wrote a book called The Big Move. And it is probably the first book that I've read featuring a family of snails.
Right.
I can't think of any other book that featured snails, which is very unique. They don't move too fast, but I'm sure they moved to them. If they moved across the street, that's a long distance for them. But we are snails, but we're not slows on the first page. And it's moving day for the snails, and the two children say they'll miss their home, and it's hard to say goodbye, and that's true, it is. I'm writing notes down here because I want to remember everything. The parent snails assure them that they will be with them as they move, and that friendships will never end. In other words, friends that they have at their old place, they'll never end. You can always keep in contact, but you'll make new friends too as you move to your new neighborhood, so to speak. In fact, I like this sentence. In fact, a true friend will keep in touch, and true friends love you very much. The children's, I remember that when we were researching on moving, a lot of younger children thought, well, I'm going to lose all my toys. I'm going to lose all my. They didn't figure that they would be going along with them. The toys, their possessions, their furniture in their room. And it's reassuring. Marla reassures them that the children's snails are also reassured that their toys, desks, and books would be going with them to their new house, which I think is important when you read this to a child, that to reassure them. So they pack up, and now they're on their way. Fun times and family awaits for them. I think they're moving towards the grandparent snails, and they leave their past, but bring with them good memory and lovable goods. So then it's a very short book and very to the point. I think it's very reassuring to read these to young children. I guess snails like spinach because and cucumbers and lettuce because they see. Yes, that's a good point too. Vegetables, to remind children about vegetables. Yes. But they see spinach and cucumbers and lettuce and their grandparents and their uncles and aunts. They unpack and they're close to their good food, the spinach and cucumbers and their family. And they unpack and make their new home really comfy. And it all ends with the old saying, home sweet home. It's just very simple and to the point. And I love the snail idea too. It's different. The snail. Can you think of any book that had snails as the stars of the book?
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because when I was first introduced to Marla and this beautiful children's book, that's one of the first things that I told her. I said, you'll see dogs in a children's book, and that's a little teaser for our third and final book that we'll be talking about momentarily. But you'll see dogs and cats and more popular animals, so to speak, but you don't think snails. And one of the interesting things about snails is it goes back to the expression that comes to mind of slow and steady wins the race.
Yes.
And snails, sometimes you'll have people that always want to move fast, and they'll tell the person who might want to move slow, don't be such a snail. Or, you always think of that slowing down analogy, right? So, I can speak from a little bit of experience. I know that, when I moved, last fall from Buffalo to San Diego, I had a million things on my plate, and I was go, 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 go. And I felt like my heart was telling me, and my guidance was telling me to slow down, to enjoy it, and to also, this is one of the things that I really love about Marla's book as well too, is that it's very normal when children are growing up and they establish a strong connection, maybe let's say with a new friend, with a school, the specific residence in which they live, and they create those synapses, those heartfelt connections, those treasured memories. They hold on to those. When it's time to let go of that, they can be a little bit sad. And I really enjoy the part about Marla's book and just the overall theme where mommy and daddy snail are reminding the little daughter snails that the best memories in life haven't even happened yet. Right? We always, it's easy to think that sometimes, there was this wonderful memory and will it happen again? And again, I'm sure that you can even attest to the fact, when, you did your work before in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, you probably had some wonderful memories and moments, right? You were always creating wonderful new experiences in the future. And I really think that Marla's book, in a very gentle, reassuring, fun way, helps kids with that.
Oh, I agree. And the unique thing about this book is after the story is over, it's said in the paragraph somewhere, and I don't know exactly. Oh, yes. Marla's children helped illustrate the book, which I think was interesting.
Glad you mentioned that, yes.
With paper and craft paper, and they cut shapes. And then not only does the book encourage children to talk about their feelings, but it encourages creativity too. And if you see the book, there's two things I made notes here because she combines social media too, but there is a juice recipe in the you can make it's called snail punch, which I thought was funny. And you can also there's a downloadable song on Spotify.
There is.
Too. And it's interesting, she combines the books with the current media, which I think is interesting. I made a note to myself, a good way to use the current social media is in combination with the moving message about moving and not forgetting the importance of reading. It's all combined there. And, the readers are also encouraged to make a creative video. So, it goes from a book to a video.
Yep.
And, I think we're in a different era. When we grew up, it was books and maybe the radio. You had television.
Yep.
But now we have all of this media. And I think there's a way of using it for the positive. I remember when Fred Rogers started his program, he knew television wasn't going away. So let's do the best we can with the media that exists today.
Yes.
And I think it's a good idea to combine reading a book, but also, okay, maybe you can create your own book, create your own video, make something related to the book. In other words, there's more to do after you read the book. It really is sort of interactive in a way, giving other suggestions. I like that.
It is.
And the one thing that I was trying to think, I said, I never liked to bend books or cut books or rip a page out of a book. And my mother said, you don't do that. You don't destroy a book like that. So I was thinking, well, you can do that in this book because they give you a place to cut. But you could also take it to a Xerox that page and use that page to make your book with.
Well, plus, David, there's actually some really good news because Marla has actually just released the Make Your Own The Big Move book. So if you've ever wanted to write and illustrate your own children's book, Marla actually provided a writing template and illustrations to make a 7-page book. So it's basically taking all of the characters from The Big Move.
I see.
You can make your own book. So if you necessarily don't want to take the time to cut out all the little snails and all the additional parts towards the end of the book, which you can if you feel guided to do so. And of course, if you have your parents' permission as well, but you can also complement that with Marla's brand new Make Your Own The Big Move book. And again, we've provided the links below if you feel guided to be able to purchase your copies on Marla's official website and through Amazon.com. That's including the links below. The last thing that I wanted to mention about Marla's book as well, too, again, you heard for many years when you did your work on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, the importance of talking about your feelings.
Yes.
And when it comes to moving, it may just seem because, like we're adults, right? We move from, whether it be one job to the next or one place to the next, and that's normal for us, right? But when you're a child, your mind is still developing. You're very impressionable as a little one. So, little one could have some anxiety about moving.
Oh, yes.
Could have some fear. And it's important that you have that you don't just dismiss your little one and how they're feeling, to have that heart-to-heart conversation and say, why are you afraid about moving? Is there something that you want to talk to us about? And to have that conversation. So I think that this book is also a great conversation starter where, let's say maybe if you're still trying to get everything set for your move and you want to have a really treasured resource to give your little ones that can help them move through those fears while also opening up the conversation, The Big Move actually does all of that, which is great.
Oh, it does. It does. There was one other thing I was gonna, and I'm sort of blanking on what I wanted to say about it. It's gone out of my head as you were, because I think you said it, you summed it up. I was trying to sum it up, but I know what I was going to say.
Go ahead.
If you get this book from the library, you can't cut up the activities.
Yes.
That's what I'm
We do
say.
not encourage the destruction of library property here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. If anything, even bring it back in more pristine condition in the way in which you found it. And David, before we transition into our third and final book, here on the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, our third and final children's book that we'll be delivering a heartfelt review on together, is you're absolutely correct about the importance of libraries and also independent bookstores as well.
Yes,
because both of them have been pillars in our communities, in our neighborhoods, across the country for a long period of time. And, it's very easy, especially with things opening up again, Disneyland and SeaWorld and baseball parks and things of that nature. It's very easy to say, forget about the library, forget about reading. Well, one of the things, depending upon, if you are, still enjoying this in the month of April, maybe even if you're watching this episode, let's say during the summer reading's just around the corner as well, too. Educators always like to provide some great books for their little ones, for their students, so that they can enjoy during the summer. And reading really has no shelf life. Especially with kids starting to look ahead to the summer, they have a little bit more free time. What better way to spend free time with your little one than taking the time to read to them? And with them.
And taking them to the library. A lot of libraries now, especially when they're building new ones, have become more of a community center. It's not only books, but they're activity rooms, and some of them have small theaters.
Yep.
And I love the idea of the book readings that they do.
I'm actually looking forward to, David, because, one of the things that, we here at Empowered Publicity, we're blessed to do previously, and we're looking forward to resuming this once everything is, fully open, is that some of the greatest experiences that I've had as a children's book author publicist is creating these events at libraries where authors can come and they can read to the children.
Yes.
And I'm really looking forward to those events resuming because, yes, David, the virtual connection that we've had for the past year has been great. But I know there's a lot of people that are just really looking forward to connecting heart to heart once again, because, I understand that we've had to do what we've had to do in the 6 feet of social distancing and the wearing the masks. I totally get that. There's no greater feeling when you're reading to a little one and you've got this, as people see the little promotional graphic for the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, it's me and you holding up the books and we're reading to kids, and the kids are very close to us, right? So, we're all very much looking forward to that. So it's interesting, David, the trolley started here in San Diego, it went to you in Pittsburgh, it went to Sanford, North Carolina, then it went over to the Los Angeles, California area, and then it makes its way back to North Carolina. The trolley's racking up a lot of mileage today here, David, on this month's episode of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. We go to the Fayetteville, North Carolina area, I believe, and that is where we will be sharing right now and diving into the pages of Alison Paul Klakowitz's award-winning children's book, Mommy's Big Red Monster Truck, which is published by Friesen Press. It's so interesting, David, because, when you think of monster trucks, you might think of father and son. You might not necessarily think of mother and son, right? So, one of the things that I saw on social media that a reader liked about Alison's book is how it breaks gender stereotypes, right? That it doesn't have to be the father and son, and that this book, of many things that that you'll be discussing, I'm sure, is the fact how it talks about how mothers and sons have that close bond with one another, and it can grow stronger.
Oh, I agree. I love the idea that it breaks the stereotype of the mom's driving the big red monster truck, the one with the big wheels. And, I'll do a little backup here. When I was about this young boy's age, the book around 7, 8, I guess, that's elementary age, we had an old car, and it was a 1938 Buick, and that's the car that my mother would drive around in. It was a huge car. To me, it seemed that way, and it had a stick gear shift, and my mother was only about 5'2", a very small woman, but she drove this, what I called a big monster car around, and it was the wartime and cars weren't being made, so we kept this car all when I grew into this car. They had it before I was born, and we kept it until to the early 1950s because cars were scarce. At any rate, it reminds me of this book and the trips they would take, and my mother would take me to the store. She'd take the whole neighborhood to swimming and drop us off, and then come back and pick us up in this big old monster car, the 1938 Buick. At any rate, this book is a lot of fun. think you would agree to that.
Very much so.
And I like Mommy's Big Red Truck. Oh, they journey through the USA. Now, I think they may have done this. And you know what the book does too? Not only helps with stereotypes with Mom's Big Red Truck, it also is a lesson in geography. Because within the book, there are, they go to different places. They go up the East Coast, North Carolina, and they see lighthouses. They go to Washington, D.C., see the White House, the mountains of Pennsylvania. And I can testify to that because Pennsylvania has a lot of mountains, not big ones, but just beautiful ones. And they go to see New York City to see the Statue of Liberty and lobster boats in Maine. And they go back down to Georgia, Mississippi, and it's a wonderful. It encourages traveling. And not only, I think that it encourages the bonding of mother and son and the big red truck. And they said, let's even go to Canada. Then they sort of imagined they could go across the sea and visit England. But what I also liked about the book too is I liked how Alison used words for the truck, the toughest ride around. And it made the little boy feel tall and the seats bounce. And then she used words. You have to see the illustrations on the page because she made sounds, you know, boing, boing, boing. Yep. And you can read those sounds to children or have them repeated as you're reading it, which I think is wonderful. And you waved, she drove him to school and he waved to classmates and waved, you know, she played with words and he helped his mom wash the truck, which is wonderful. And then splish, splash, rub-a-dub-dub, all these words are printed in big font.
Big letters, yes.
Yeah, big letters. So I think you can have a lot of fun with that with a child. You know, can you say that? You know, can you say rub-a-dub-dub? It makes it more than just reading. The child gets pulled into the book, which that's what I like.
More engaging, yes.
Yes, and and all of this made him so proud of his mother that she had the big truck. And Mommy's, I wrote this down. It says, and Mommy's make kids feel safe. They feed them, read books to them. Mommies are awesome. I love you, Mommy, it says in the very final page. It says how proud he is of his mother. And this is the last sentence. And she drives a big red monster truck, and I think she's very cool.
and that's language that a child can resonate with, yes, right? You know, and it's I feel that this book is relatable on so many levels. I also want to mention that Alison has a little boy named Mac, and her son Mac, and the adventures that they share together helped to inspire the release of Mommy's Big Red Monster Truck and the wonderful work that Alison is doing for children, for parents, for families and educators in North Carolina, across the country and around the world. Again, you know, similarly to, you know, it's really a similar thread to all of the books that we're sharing here on the April edition of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. The illustrations are very colorful.
Yeah, they are.
They're very vibrant. And again, it's very easy. And, you know, I say this respectfully, you know, a little one can have an attention span that might be about the size of a lima bean at times, right? So but
here's some of the words, how, you know, big is emphasized.
Yes.
And I think that engages the child too. You know, their mind doesn't wander. How do you say big? Can you say boom, boom, boom? Yep. All of that, I think, is very, it's a lot of fun. All three books had a different approach. And it's interesting. They were quite a variety of books. This one, as you said, is very colorful. Who did the illustrations again? I don't, on Alison's book? Oh, I'm looking for the illustrator. Does it happen?
Yeah. Alison had such great support from her family and from her team that helped to blend everything together. And it's interesting, David, because one of the other things that I wanted to mention about the book as well, too, about Mommy's Big Red Monster Truck, is we talked about at the beginning of our bookcast on how things are starting to open up now more, and people are starting to travel more. People are, they may not necessarily be flying still a lot, and that's starting to pick up, but people are taking those road trips. Right. And that's something that was missing for a long period of time, whether it be driving up to the mountains or driving out to the lake. A lot of the times that's some of the most amazing experiences that little ones have is growing up. They go on road trips. I know for, me growing up back in Buffalo, we had this old amusement park, and it might reopen under new ownership, but it was called Fantasy Island. And it was around for some time, and they had, the old school antique cars, and there was the bumper cars, and the water park. Like, those are wonderful experiences.
Yeah, they are.
That little ones have. And I also want to make mention of one other thing, the fact that Alison is also a military spouse as well too. And I think that this just really just goes to show the fact that children's authors, they come from so many wonderful backgrounds, like Marla with her work in the school system beforehand, Trinity with her work as a teacher, Alison with her work being a mother, being a military spouse as well too. Children's authors come from different walks of life, but that same universal thread is still in place, and it's the care and the love of the children and placing the focus on children's literacy, which really is important now more than ever before.
And I'm sure every children's author probably loved reading and being read to as a child. I would 100%. Think that, it's not so much what you read to the child, and that's important. Of course, I'm being facetious, but it's the closeness when you read to a child, whether it's parent and child. It's that bonding that reading can do as you read a book, which is so important. And I think that's the link.
I think you hit the nail on the head, David, is the fact that it's really about that time that you spend, right? I know that it's very easy, and I'm not coming from the perspective of being a parent just yet. I don't have a little one on my own end of things, but it's very easy to go to the store and buy yourself the thing or give them the money. And it's another thing to spend the time with your little one as well too. And that's what you remember growing up. That's when that's what you have a greater appreciation for more and more as we grow up from children into adults and into big kids.
David, I agree. I remember last week, we said this last Bookcast, but what you just said about what you remember, my mother took me to meet the author of Uncle Wiggily. When we were in New York,
yes.
He lived in New Jersey. We were right across the river from New York City. We were visiting, and she made an appointment. I met the author of Uncle Wiggily, Howard R. Garris. And I remember that, and that got me interested in another series of books that he wrote. And it really, that's what I remember. And I, to this day, and my wife's the same way, we have more books in this house. And I think it's that early introduction to reading, and most importantly, it's the bonding. Yes. I think as you read to your kids, when you're doing it, some evenings you're so tired that you feel, oh, well, I make it through. Oh, I remember one evening I was reading to one of our children. I can't remember which one, but I was nodding off, and every so often I get an elbow.
A little nudge.
Say, Dad, wake up. You're tired, but I did it. They understood. But as a result, our kids all love books. And so that's why I think the importance of children's literature is just vital. Just nothing will replace the turning of the page.
That is true.
in a
book.
And
I'm even old. I say that I'm old school. I feel that I'm an old soul, David. There's something about having the physical book. Now, obviously, again, if digital books, whether it be through Kindle or the PDFs or whatever your cup of tea is, you can still do that. But there's no better feeling than opening up a brand new children's book. And,
I agree.
Breathing in the experience of it, turning the pages. David, obviously in Pittsburgh, that is still where you hang your hat. Empowered Publicity's Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. We are proud to support Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh. Now, you might be wondering, well, David and John, what is Reading is Fundamental? Reading is Fundamental, which was, it's been around for a long period of time. They are the oldest and largest children's the oldest and largest nonprofit children's literacy organization in the United States. And their mission is to provide children with the necessary resources and motivation and opportunities to develop a lifelong love of reading. So as you hang your hat still in Pittsburgh, of course, that's where Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was filmed. And many people have that affinity with the Steel City. We here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast are proud to donate every month a contribution to Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh, which is the Pittsburgh chapter of the national non-for-profit Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh. So just so you know, the outreach that Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh have, last year, they engaged over 23,000 children and provided 80,000 children's books in the hands of those who needed them most. So Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh really gives back to the lower income families within the Steel City. And you can take the time, if you feel guided, to contribute, to donate on your end of things. We have provided the link how you can donate to Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh in the description below. If you have a piece of paper and pen and you say, John and David, what's that link? You can head on over to rifpittsburgh.org/donate. And again, whatever contribution you feel guided to give, very much continues the work. It makes it easier so that they can put more children's books into the hearts and minds and souls of our little ones, David. And just one of the last things that I wanted to mention, in being in Pittsburgh several times and getting to become friends with you over the course of this past year, visiting the Fred Rogers Center, just the Pittsburgh community, it really is a neighborhood.
Oh, it is. Yes. Very much so. Pittsburgh is they always call it a big, small town. It's a big city.
It is, yeah.
But it has that neighborhood feel. And, earlier in one of the books, the mountains of Pennsylvania. They drove through the mountains of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. Pittsburgh's very hilly, and thus I think those hills keep neighborhoods intact.
Yep.
Pittsburgh is a city of neighborhoods. It's an interesting, it's geographically that way. And I think it helps neighborhoods stay neighborhoods. At any rate, it's a wonderful city, but it was called the Steel City. At one time, they called it the Smoky City, and it's not that anymore. Yep. But it was the headquarters for steel for a long time, and that is switching a lot. The steel industry is switching, but they still, of course, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and so everything steel was made here. But it really, it's got one of the best library facilities, the Carnegie Libraries. Andrew Carnegie provided, and they're all over Pittsburgh. And that's why I have an affinity for libraries, because I love going into them and looking. It's just like Christmas morning. You don't know where to look first.
Each and every day,
so many books.
You don't necessarily know where to begin, but technically, if you do go to the library, the perfect place is to start in the children's section. Because yes. I really feel that children's books, and we talked about this on the premiere of the Bookcast, which if you missed episode number 1 of the Bookcast, if you love what you've been watching here in episode number 2, you want to go to the archives, so to speak, at Empowered Publicity's YouTube channel. It is now available for you to check out. Is that children's books always help adults in our own growth and in our own healing and reconnecting to our own inner child. So, we encourage all of you to be able to continue to support your libraries, your independent bookstores, and to really just continue to support children's authors, because authors such as Trinity and Marla and Alison. They are providing such a needed, such a valuable service for children, especially right now. And there's many ways that you can support children's authors, whether it be purchasing their books through their websites or Amazon, even if it's liking and following them on social media, leaving a kind word, leaving a 5-star review on Amazon. There's different ways that you can support Trinity and Marla and Alison and all of the wonderful children's authors that are out there as well too. David, I hear the trolley, and you know when you hear the trolley, you know that it means it's time to go. And again, I still smile when I say this, because literally where I'm blessed to reside here in San Diego, I'm literally right next door to the San Diego trolley. So I will hear the trolley several times during the course of the day. So it's just so fascinating. If this is such a joy for David and I to be able to give back to all of you, our friends, our neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars. So if this message of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, the second episode of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, if this has inspired you, if it's brought more love and joy, even some healing into your heart, even if you're just simply inspired to read more, if you feel that this message needs to be shared with someone in need, we encourage you to subscribe to Empowered Publicity's official YouTube channel and to share episode number 2, this very special trolley stop on your favorite social media platforms of your choosing, episode number 2 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. If you are a children's author and you would like to have your book featured on a future edition of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, you can connect with us at empoweredpublicity.com or connect with us via any of our social media platforms that you now see on screen: Facebook and Instagram at Empowered Publicity and Twitter at Empowered_PR. If you are a children's author and you are looking for dedicated PR support to be able to create more awareness and visibility for your work as a children's author and to share your inspiring story in the release of your brand new children's book, you can also schedule your own courtesy discovery call by heading on over to empoweredpublicity.com and let us see how we can be of service to all of you. And again, we want to thank the 3 authors that were very kind to be able to join us for, they were almost with us in spirit, so to speak, David. These wonderful books, Trinity Bursey's The Little Piano, and Marla Huehmer's The Big Move, and Alison Paul Klakowitz's Mommy's Big Red Monster Truck. And the one thing I will forget, I almost forgot to mention, is that Alison is also behind the scenes working on her second children's book as well, too. So again, you can stay connected with all of these authors, with Trinity, with Marla, and with Alison via their official websites and their social media platforms, which we've included in the description below. David, any final words before we conclude our trolley stop, before we conclude the podcast?
Don't forget to visit your local library. I'm sure you can find all 3 books there, right?
Indeed.
And more.
And yeah, there's much more than 3 children's books that are available in libraries. And again, we want to thank all of you for your continued support, not only of Empowered Publicity, not only for the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. We want to thank you for what it is that you are doing to support children's authors, to support children's literacy. And above all else, as we like to say here at Empowered Publicity and the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, we want to thank all of you for helping to walk home the children of the world. And remember, our 3 favorite numbers here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast: 2, 4, 3. Now, David kind of remembers what 1, 4, 3 symbolized. 2, because we're always together. We're always, you're never alone. There's 2 letters in we, there's 4 letters in love, and there's 3 letters in you. So 2, 4, 3, it means that we love you. So again, for David Newell, for myself, John Masiulionis, this has been episode number 2 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. Continue to support the wonderful children's authors across the country and around the world. Don't forget to visit your local library as well, to support your favorite independent bookstores. And we'll be back in the month of May for episode number 3 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. We look forward to connecting with all of you once again very soon.